And my buddy and I are watching. We're like, this is about to happen, isn't it? So back at the shop I worked at before I went out on my own, I became known as the, I guess you call it the e-commerce guy. So we actually had this client come in one day. He had a first generation Mercedes GL450. It was a first year 2007 model that he bought brand new. Had only like 80,000 miles on it, and it was very clean. It was the dark lunar blue, as they call it, and it was the only GL I've seen that had like no options. There were no heated seats, there was no sunroof, there was no power trunk. I didn't even know that was possible on one of those. He had rear-ended somebody and pretty much folded in the front half of the car. He brought it in. I don't know how. It was leaking every fluid from the front of the car. I mean, power steering, the transmission cooler line got busted, so it was dumping transmission fluid everywhere. He brought it to us to try and see about getting it fixed. And we took one look at it and we're like, no, this one's not worth saving. Magically, he found another one that had like no options. We asked him, well, what do we do with your old GL now? He says, I want nothing to do with it. You guys sell it. And so my boss at the time, he goes to me, he says, here you go, Cam, try and sell this GL. And I'm like, okay. So I take some pictures, one owner, since new, low mileage, had a rear end accident. Looks pretty good. I take all the pictures, put it up on Facebook. Like anything that has a somewhat attractive price compared to the market value, you get bombarded with messages. I get a message that is in the most like proper college grammatically correct English that I've seen, with a name that's very difficult to pronounce. Immediately, you think, oh boy, I've seen this song and dance before. This is a scam. Guy's like, I'm in Michigan. Of course, he's not local to me. He's like, I'm in Michigan and I'm interested in buying this car. He actually admitted he was an exporter and he was planning on exporting this car out to Africa, or I forget exactly the country. But I was like, great, because in my normal experience, that's always something that's danced around. He actually started messaging me off his actual phone number and it matched Michigan. And I was like, oh, okay, this might be something. We start putting the deal together. I forget what we agreed on. I think it was $5,000 or $6,000, which was a decent price for one at the time, even for one that's wrecked. A few weeks go by, I'm not really hearing from him. He's trying to put together a tow truck or, a hot shot to take it down to the port in Florida. I'm like, well, let's try and finalize this deal. And then he starts going back to the Facebook Messenger. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, this is going to turn out like I thought. So he starts going through there and he's like, I'm trying to send you the money. And I'm like, here, let's do it through a wire transfer. Let's do it in a way that makes me feel a little more comfortable. And he agrees. He's like, okay, we'll do that. And then like a day goes by and he's like, hey, I sent you the money. And I'm like, yeah, of course you did. So I look and I'm like, nope, I see no money anywhere. I don't know where you sent it, but it's not here. He's like, no, I promise I sent it. Keep looking. And I do. And of course, this is just what you hear all the time. Like, no, there's no money. And thankfully he didn't say to go ahead and release the car, that no one was coming to get it. So we were safe there. Next day goes by. He's like, okay, I got the money sent. It should be good. And, not long after that, I see Facebook pop up. And I'm like, and it says, hey, you've received a payment of this amount. We need you to confirm your social security number to accept this payment. And I'm like, buddy, this isn't what we talked about. Like, this is supposed to be a wire transfer. Why is it on Facebook? Like, I start Googling different, like, can Facebook pay you? Because this was a new concept at the time. I start going through their support section, looking through and like, is this legitimate? Like, would it ask me for my social security number? Let's just shoot the juice, see what happens. At least it'll be on Facebook and it's not like my actual account information or anything like that. And thankfully, it only asks for the last 4 of your social. So I'm like, okay, it makes me feel a little better. But as soon as I hit submit, I was sweating bullets because I'm like, something about to go down. It said submitted and we're processing your payment. And then it showed where to transfer the money. So I immediately transferred it to my bank account. And within moments, I looked at my bank account and there was the amount of money I was expecting there. So I was absolutely shocked. And so I called him and said, hey, the money went through. I think we're all good because it's in my account. I don't think they'll take it back. So what are we doing with this car? He said, I'm trying to find someone to come pick it up because I'm going to just send it down to the port. I'm not going to, he didn't come see it or anything this whole time. Finally, he's like, okay, there's a transporter on the way. I'm like, great. I'm like, what do you want me to do with the paperwork? And he's like, well, I don't need it. Just put it in the car. So I'm like, is this guy serious? Like, he's he's got the money in my pocket, and the car's here and the title's here. I'm like, this goes against everything it says: the car, the money, and the title. The transporter shows up, and as with many transporters, it's very questionable. It's one of those ones that it's the 2-stage trailers, and it has the ramp that goes down so you can put the cars on the top level. He starts lowering down the rear ramp to move this Jeep, and he thinks, okay, I'm just going to put the GL behind it. And so he backs up the Jeep a little bit, leaves it running, and throws it in park and starts lowering the ramp. In this time, I'm like, the GL doesn't drive, right? And he's like, it's no big deal. I'll get it up there. I pull it around with the forklift because there's no transmission fluid in it. So you put it in gear, it just neutral revs out. It might barely start moving. Just there's not enough fluid in it to get moving. And we're waiting for this guy. And he's like trying to figure out what to do, where to put it. And I'm like, it's not going up on that top level. Like, there's no way. And he's like, no, I have to get it up there because I'm putting a couple more cars on this trailer. I'm like, okay. So he's already got the Jeep partway lowered down, and he starts lowering the ramp down even more. And my buddy and I are watching. We're like, this is about to happen, isn't it? Because he left it running, and so sure enough, he gets the ramp down to a pretty steep angle, and the Jeep starts rolling. And I'm like, buddy, you gotta come get this Jeep. Because it's still it's like 4 feet off the ground if it falls off. And he comes running, and I mean, the dude, he's at least 300, 350. Like, he's a big guy, and he starts coming. He's like trying to climb up on the trailer. He can't stop the Jeep. Thankfully, it's a Jeep, and the as they call it, the approach angle. There's nothing really hanging off the front wheels very far. So, I mean, the thing falls off the back of the trailer, slams the ground, and just barely touches the tow hooks on the front of it. And then he's able to get in the car and hold the brakes and stop it. And then I'm like, well, what are you going to do? It's halfway on the trailer and it's halfway off. So he just rolls it the rest of the way off, and it just slams the back end onto the ground. And we're like, this car's never going to make it to Florida if this guy's taking it. He gets in the GL, fires it up, throws it in gear, barely moving. It's running like 3,000 RPM and just crawled. And my buddy and I are just like, well, we wanted some popcorn. We wanted to watch this unfold. And so he backs up, starts going up the ramp, makes it about a foot up the ramp, and the thing just won't pull anymore. So what does he do? He backs off about 20 feet, 30 feet back, and tries to get a running start at it. And the thing, he has it at like 5,000 RPM. It's about at red line going like 3 miles an hour. And he doesn't gauge the ramps right. So he's got like the passenger wheels off the ramp. We're like, whoa, buddy, what are you doing? And so he backs down, tries it again. And by then we're starting to smell the transmission. And we're like, this thing's just never going to make it. And I'm going to have to explain to the guy that bought this car that, the tow truck driver just grenaded it. Finally, we convince him, put this thing on the bottom. And we actually had to put the tow hook on the front bumper and strap the forklift to it and pull the GL up alongside on the trailer with the forklift alongside the trailer pulling it up. That got it on the trailer, and he got the Jeep back on and went off about his way. And I didn't hear any more, so I assume it made it to its final destination safely. Actually, just a few months ago, the guy that bought it, he rings me up and he's like, hey, do you have any more cars for sale? And I was like, wow, this whole time I thought this was going to turn out badly, and I still have a contact out of it. So if you ever need a car exported, I have a guy.
No one should do a private party car deal without Caramel. During a car transaction, you've got a car, a title, and some money that's going to be changing hands, and I always tell everybody that neither side gets to have all three. But Caramel solves all of that because they verify the identities of both parties, they safely and securely connect to each side's bank account to manage the transfer of money, and they process your title and do all the DMV paperwork no matter what state the buyer or the seller are in. And for a limited time, Caramel is free to both buyers and sellers. They do allow you to add transportation and warranty products and things like that as you close your deal. So check them out now at drivecaramel.com or at the link in the description below.